Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, and I will talk about Path of Exile 2. In short, I'm a brand new PoE player and I've been playing ARPGs pretty much on and off for a long time. It wasn't until Diablo 4 that I really committed to one. While Diablo 4 has been, well, an absolute mess, there's been a lot of fun as well, but throughout that experience I was hearing about Path of Exile 1 and how good that is, especially compared. Whether it's the major or minor differences, the very design philosophies that the company actually works under, PoE was sounding like some sort of holy land compared to the Blizzard experience. So I've been finally giving it a go and having a really good time with it. And despite the fact that Path of Exile 1 is literally a decade old now, I find it holds up incredibly well with ridiculous depth to every main system. On the other hand, that same thing, that decade of depth, has created a lot of issues. It's a decade of system blow and a major problem for the game and its potential to actually capture a new player base at the current point. If it wasn't for the big community of people who've been basically helping me along, explaining thousands of things that I need to know at each step, it would have been a lot harder to get into the game. And so that's where Path of Exile 2 comes in, promising to be the same rich, deep game, but with a much more understandable and approachable foundation. Everything I've learned so far about Path of Exile 2 though has me very excited, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. New information and big discussion came about after the well-known creator Barbarian interviewed Jonathan Rogers, that's the game director for Path of Exile 2. It was a long, involved talk. If you want to check out the full interview, I would really recommend it, but these are just the main topics I want to talk about. So, firstly, if you didn't know, the game itself is planned still for the closed beta launch on June 7th, 2024. What's really cool about this beta though is how they're actually going to be doing things very similar to their previous methods. They said to refer to that for how they're going to do it with, PoE 2. This means then they're very likely to be releasing the beta keys in huge waves each and every day from the moment that it's available. And this will initially go to people who bought, say, the supporter packs that will also grant you access to the betas. Interestingly though, those who have supported Path of Exile 1 also just have a chance to get access, whether you buy the support pack or not. That means if you played the game a lot and maybe also supported it with different amounts of purchases, or yet maybe the support pack, it seems you'll have a much greater chance of actually being selected sooner. Certainly seems then they want players who have played the game a lot and have previously supported the game to get access first, which is how it really should be. Crazily, you can expect the beta to run in some form all the way to their planned release. It'll include most of the main game, the campaign, a bunch of endgame stuff like maps, all the ascendancies and the classes, with some restrictions on the true endgame. It won't be the full thing, but it will be most of it. The proper details about this are going to come with time, but those are the main things we know right now. It sounds awesome, and when we get the concrete details, I'm sure we're going to talk about it. But now for some more main topics. Let's talk about that whole simplifying the game versus making it easier to understand the systems and apply them more effectively, that concept. Now, they said before that they want to make players have an easier time grasping that information, as I've said, and it's a big topic of discussion in the community. Rogers specifically explained that they don't want to simplify the game in any real way. They don't want to make it shallower. They want the same level of depth that we have now. It's just specifically they want the tooltips to actually help the player at the right time in a much more understandable way. They want the skill gen system, for example, to be much more understandable. In PoE 1, you take a skill gem, you slot it into a piece of equipment like a weapon or armor, and you need like a green gem into a green slot, or blue or red based on whatever it is. From there, the skill just works while it's equipped, and we can enhance its power with the support gems, which need to be connected to that slot that has the skill in it. Maybe we make bleed chances higher or attacks faster, maybe you change the ability from costing mana to health, and so on. But it gets a bit complicated because you need to link to the slot that has the skill, be the right color, and because you can put the wrong things in the wrong place, it might actually happen that you think it's working when it isn't, especially as a new player who doesn't understand. It's just a lot of the UI stuff that isn't very clear. It doesn't properly showcase that the skill is successfully being supported. But something they're doing in PoE 2 is we're going to be slotting support gems into the skill gems rather than into anything like equipment. That way we're going to have one place where you can check all the slotted skills, and it actually apparently won't let you slot a supported skill that won't successfully support said skill. That right there is going to be much clearer and obvious that it is working, because if it did work, it let you put it in. That's a cool and obvious example of how they're going to change things to be, well, the same, but also much more understandable. I am wondering about the other things they've done to make things, easier to understand, but that's their main example they'd like to talk about. It is interesting that Rogers explained that they're doing a good amount of testing using players who have actually never played PoE 1 to help the usability of their new systems from the perspective of a true new player. So they're taking it very seriously. Next though, another big topic is the new movement, the ability to use WASD on the keyboard to move around and then turn an attack directionally at the same time with the mouse. That's a really interesting concept for an ARPG and could actually radically change the way that future ARPGs are made, if it works out. Will it work though? Well, Rogers was asked what kind of gameplay sims best, an honest answer based on his experience. Should you use a controller, is that best? Or is WASD actually now optimal? Or is the normal ARPG style with mouse movement, is that still going to be probably best? Rogers explained that their main focus was actually just making the game feel good, so all three are options, but it wasn't a concern of making a best one, just make all of them feel good. However, Rogers did say that through testing, he found that the WASD movement was just ideal for him, and he was actually enjoying it with melee characters. Turns out, when you're aiming your cleaves and slams and so on, it's actually great to be able to move around, so you can position those attacks more effectively. It sounds like it's just going to give you an extra level of control, which is certainly a good thing. I've always found the whole click to move and attack at the same time on the mouse a bit awkward for aiming purposes. At the same time, when I saw the WASD movement, I wasn't exactly convinced it would work well in this kind of environment. But hearing Rogers' answer about this, I actually think I'm definitely going to try it now, and I might end up maining it. Alright, so while we're on this note, they followed up with the topic of attack while moving. A powerful concept that they absolutely want in the game, but specifically they want it to be rare and pretty special. A lot of the skill from the game is about, facing and aiming the right way, landing your attack successfully, and doing it at a fast pace while still avoiding enemy attacks. When you're doing an animation, it might hold you in place, and that should be a conscious decision. I found in PoE 1 that I can actually animation cancel to speed things up. I'll do one attack and interrupt it with another, and create a sort of burst of combo. This can be great while moving around and circling an enemy while it's swinging and I'm already behind it, or something as simple as moving in and out and doing it. It's that classic stuff that is pretty much eliminated when you're able to attack and move at the same time, removing a bit of the depth and skill, and I think that's pretty important. So some special abilities in PoE 2 will allow you to attack and move at the same time, but yeah, it's going to be rare. Rogers explained that some classes are going to be actually more inclined to lean on attack while moving concepts, since it's tied to their class design, best shown with that shooter-inspired new class, the Mercenary, but even then it's going to be a special thing rather than normal, which sounds good to me. Moving on to another really important topic, the item distribution changes. This might sound bland if you're new to PoE, but this is genuinely really important. Basically, items drop constantly. After all, this is an ARPG, so lots of loot. The issue with that is how most items are pretty much ignored or even useless. And that comes at a quick point. I've been playing through the campaign and I'm actually experiencing plenty of items that I don't give a damn about, that I don't even want to pick up and sell. As soon as I started using a loot filter, I don't even see those anymore. I'm only shown items that are relevant to me in some way, they have some kind of value, and I still have to scan through those and consider a good amount. But compared to before, it's a lot less. Players often, as they progress, will use stricter and stricter filters to basically ignore most of the items that are dropping. If you're an experienced player, you probably know well that you're seeing barely any items. It's kind of unfortunate, and it seems to go against the philosophy that they envision. It's been said that they want items dropped to feel more interesting and fun, a bit more exciting, an event. And we've seen the way that they're combating that with the recent Affliction League and the whole loot explosion thing that's going on. In short, players are going into the new Wildwood locations, finding the wisps, and they're doing something called juicing by the community. You collect the wisps and they increase the chance of currency drops and the quality of items and so on. So you collect a ton of them, like 2,000 plus, and that might cause these loot explosions. Loads of items that are higher quality and therefore more relevant, and you get this absolute wall of icons and items on the screen. Pretty cool, pretty fun for a league mechanic, but long term it's a bit crazy and a bit overwhelming. Maybe it could be implemented in a smarter way. Well, Rogers explained that they're going to take this juicing concept and maybe keep it, but do it in a different way, where they're not drowning the players in the same kind of items that you still have to scan through, as exciting as it is, but they're going to reduce the amount of the explosion, but increase the value of every item by a lot. Outside of that, they've also talked about how they want to reduce crafting being the solution to everything, and the item drops being useless mostly is an issue, but they haven't fully explained how they're going to be doing that, just they're going to be trying that. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. Next, on the topic of skill and freedom of choice, i.e. like a melee focused witch or a magic using warrior, that way that any class can use any skill gem, and the many ways to try to make a builder version of that. They're certain that they want to keep that concept in PoE 2, let anyone use anything, but at the same time, they are keeping the unique aspects of classes very vitally important to why you would pick a class, meaning the ascendancies. They're like 3 skill trees that only that class can choose. So in the case of my duelist in PoE 1, I recently picked the gladiator ascendancy to enhance my lacerate bleed build, and now I'm a gladiator, not a duelist. And the perks of that specific ascendancy are only acquired through that. That means if I'm, say, a witch, I can't take the gladiator ascendancy, so maybe a lacerate bleed build might not be the best for a witch, I don't know. But still, basically, there's going to be a reason to pick a class and go for specific builds, but you still have true freedom and weird combinations will still work. Also, by the way, they briefly mentioned shapeshifting because of the Druid stuff, and how shapeshifting is also going to be generally available to everyone, where I thought it would actually be a Druid only thing. This means every class could do some kind of shapeshifting if they wanted, but as I just explained with the ascendancies and build plans, surely some class combos with shapeshifting are going to be better than others, so we'll have to see. Next, a quick word on boss fighting. Crip expressed the thought the bosses seemed a bit slow to kill in the footage that we've seen so far, and Jonathan explained that the bosses can actually die really quickly, or at very least take huge chunks of burst once you understand them and their weaknesses. Interestingly, the Druid and Mercenary footage was recorded by Jonathan Rogers himself, which is unheard of. The demo's actually being done by the director of the game. That's so cool. He explained that with the boss and the mercenary footage we had, he went from killing the boss in about 5 minutes the first time he fought it, to then under 30 seconds in future attempts, meaning with the same class build, setup, all of that, the only difference was his understanding of the class and the boss and its mechanics, and learning how to best set up for a DPS window. I was watching that demo footage they showed us after hearing that, and I could see how at times he set up some kind of penetrating shot thing to hit both bosses at the same time, getting better DPS, but I could also see that if he chose to save his stun a bit more, he could counter, say, the channeled spinning blades attack maybe, stunning both the bosses, and then you could drop, say, a pile of grenades from the grenade launcher for a big potent AoE. There was ways that I was watching and thought, oh, you could do this or that, to greatly increase the kill time on a boss. So it sounds like there's going to be some real skill to defeating the bosses and fast, and that's an exciting concept for, say, replaying the axe on different classes and different builds. Alright, one final major topic that I find really important as a new player was the community question asked to Rogers in this interview. It's about the insane breaking of the game that the top % of players do with their builds in the end game in PoE 1. You see them flying, teleporting around, killing everything in one attack in these massive AoEs, there's beams and cleaves, and you know, honestly, to me as a new player, it's not only confusing to see that, but it's also really uninteresting for me to watch that. It doesn't make me excited to play. It kind of looks like mindless destruction of everything, but I don't know if there's actual skill during that gameplay, and I've not got the chance to try it, and I want to try it all the same. Rogers explained that they want to combat this concept in some way, but unfortunately provided what he acknowledged was a non-answer. They do want the difference to be clear between your average player and the true top %. They want people to still be able to break the game in this way, but on the other hand, he knows that it does put off new players that see that and are just really confused. It's this absolute wall of outdated VFX. It is a big topic in the community, it would seem, like the old player base still want to keep that kind of game break power in their game, and essentially Rogers suggests that we need the beta to really know what they're going to need to do. We need to try it ourselves, but also they need to see how it goes from our perspective and adjust. You know, a beta, which is what a beta's meant to be, not like an early demo of an unfinished game we're going to play in like 2 months. What a crazy concept. Personally, I still can't comment on if the game breaker stuff is fun and whether I think it should be or shouldn't be in the game. I haven't tried it yet, but it is very confusing for me to look at, and it doesn't seem fun to play long term from my outside perspective. Maybe though, the journey to breaking the game and reaching that level of power is where the fun lies, and I am really enjoying my journey on the way in PoE 1 right now. And I know that this game and its end game is well loved, so it must be good, right? But while I continue my journey, I'll be very interested to see how PoE 2 improves this aspect of the end game gameplay. Hopefully with less VFX, that means I can't understand or see anything. But yeah, that brings us to the conclusion. While there was a lot of topics discussed in that interview, these were the things that interested me most, and I hope this look and some of my personal perspective on these topics was useful to you. We still have a while to wait before we finally get to play PoE 2, but on the bright side, PoE 1 is fantastic. I'm really enjoying learning the game right now in prep, and if you haven't given it a go, I strongly recommend it. Until next time though, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.